Welcome to The View From Here, a podcast where we uncover the turning points, pressure moments, and the identity shifts that shape high achievers into who they are today. This show is for people who've built impressive lives on paper, but now their real story sits in the moments no one sees. The pivots, the breakdowns, the breakthroughs, and the internal rewiring that changes their trajectory. The View From Here is about perspective, the one you earn only by living it. Ben Kirkwood has spent the last 20 years working in hospitality and tourism, running restaurants, managing hotels, and operating small resorts across Australia and overseas. That kind of career gives you a front row seat to how tourism actually works, day to day, season to season, and how closely it's tied to the people and places behind it. Over the years, Ben has been involved in both a business and community level, including time as Vice President of Destination Byron Bay and long-standing involvement with the Byron Visitor Centre and the Chamber of Commerce. These roles have meant being in the middle of real conversations between growth and pressure, industry needs and community needs, and what it takes to hold both at once. In 2020, in amongst the chaos of a global pandemic, Beach Restaurant was hit with another natural disaster, an erosion event that nearly took out everything. One of those moments that strips things back to basics, not just financially or operationally, but personally, and forces a deep look at risk, resilience, and what you're actually building for. What often gets missed in Ben's story is what drives him underneath it all. It's not about recognition or ticking boxes. It's about care for this town, this region, and long-term future of an industry he's been a part of for most of his life. Ben, welcome to The View From Here.
Thanks, Nikki.
Big intro, hey?
Yeah, big intro. Yeah, I was wondering, this guy sounds impressive.
Isn't it nice, though? I heard somebody say the other day, the only time you hear all the accolades and awards and things that you've done is at your funeral and you're not there to hear it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, I always think it might be nice to actually have the funeral before you go so you can enjoy that, you know.
Yep. A celebration of life party.
That's right.
Well, maybe we can look at today
as my funeral. Maybe.
Hopefully decades before. So obviously you've had a big career in hospitality and its connection to tourism. Where does that all start? How did you get into this?
I think, I think we sort of fell into it. It's a funny story that I actually, in grade 5, wrote an essay and they said, what do you want to be where do you see yourself in 40 years or something like that? There's a question. And my mum, who's passed now, but she found this one day and dug it up years after when we'd actually got into hospitality. But in this essay, I wrote about how I had this dream to own a restaurant overlooking the beach, a restaurant or a pub or a bar or something. I can't remember what it's described as, overlooking the beach in this beautiful location, blah, blah, blah. And anyway, it was kind of reading this afterwards. It was sort of like, do, sort of, wow, that's weird. But work started in the industry back when we were studying, when, in my early career. And before, when I didn't think that was where I was going to go. And then I worked overseas when I was traveling, worked in bars and restaurants and like a lot of backpackers, just working it. And then got into another industry, which was in a completely different industry, and industrial services, working in refineries, petrochemical, that thing. And I did that for about 15 years, progressed very quickly up through the ranks, and to the point I'd got to in my late 20s where I was a national sales and marketing manager. And I'm looking around at all my peers and they were all like 50-year-olds. And I'm going, oh my God, this is going to be me for the next 30 years. It's like, do I really want to do this? And then I'd always kind of went, there's got to be more to life than this. Well, I was making good money and it was whatever, but is this what I want to do forever? And what happened was that my wife and I we weren't married then, but pre-marriage, we went on a holiday to Port Douglas and had that epiphany that is so common these days. The sea change is well done, or the tree change. And we went up there and went, wow, wouldn't it be great to live in a place like this? And Belinda worked in hospitality as well in her younger years as well. And we both went, we could open a little bar or restaurant and do something, we could live by the beach and, wouldn't life be great? and that was really the germ of the starting that whole thought process, and that ended up with us moving to the Caribbean for a number of years.
Wow.
Went out there on our honeymoon and stayed for 3 years, and that was really putting our toe in the water to see if we wanted to do it. And 3 years later, we came back to Australia and bought a troop carrier and loaded it up and started driving up the east coast and got to Byron Bay and
Never
been here for 30 years. So that's how it happened.
And isn't that ironic that you can go on a honeymoon, never leave, but start that dreaming process even before that and then create it all?
I think it was for us, it was about doing something that we really enjoyed. And a lot of times in hospitality, it's a vocation. You know, you're probably not doing it for the money, and you're certainly not doing it for the lifestyle, but it's about being around people and in nice environments and people who are in relaxed headspaces and having fun and a few drinks and some nice food, and you're talking about things like that. And that's more pleasurable than crawling around oil refineries and into pipes and tanks and getting covered in grease and muck, you know. And so it just became, that's really where it started. And I guess it was our passion for living in beautiful locations and making sure they were beautiful and giving people the sort of experiences that we had and wanted to have in those locations. And that was really where it all sort of stemmed from.
So if I hear you right, it's that you knew what lifestyle you wanted and then looked at what could complement it.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
make it.
with hindsight.
Yeah, that's so clear.
Yeah, it seemed like that was the case, but hospitality is like I say, it's lifestyle is like I say, it's a vocation. It's something you really have to give your life over to.
Sure.
You know, we don't get to take as many holidays as we like, but you know, we work in a beautiful location, so it's not like we're stuck in an office or a factory somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's the reason that makes it more palatable. But it is an all-consuming lifestyle for sure.
And do you think that's something that a lot of people don't think about? They have that pipe dream of, I want to own a cafe and restaurant because I'll get to eat good food and drink coffee all day and socialise.
Yeah, I'll sit around and drink and talk to the customers.
And how often does that happen?
Yeah, not that often anymore. But yeah, I think, look, absolutely, I think that's what it is. And I think it's one of those businesses or industries that people, because it's quite accessible for people to get into, it's the same probably with retail fashion and things like that. People go, oh, I love clothes and fashion. I can set up a little boutique, and that'll be me. Or I can start a little cafe, or I cook really good food at home. And I've watched every episode of MasterChef. I can do this, And it's kind of, the reality is often very different to what you might imagine it to be. So but I think that's what attracts people. And over the years, when you lived in Byron Bay for as many years as we have, you see a lot of people come and go, and they come here thinking that's going to be all this, and then they realise it's a lot of hard work and there's a lot of ups and a lot of downs, and it's not all you might imagine it to be. So
And I think that's a big thing, isn't it? It's the longevity that you and your wife have created, not just in beach, but in your previous restaurant, which you've had another one in Byron.
Well, we've had two others in Byron, So we had Toscani's, which we started back in the mid-90s. And then we had Dish Restaurant, which we had for 11 years before we started this one. And these Dish and this overlapped for a couple of years. And that's another story. But that was such a big stressful period. I ended up having a small stroke and ended up in hospital, and realised we just had to we had too much on our plate. And this was so all-encompassing that we were at the end of our journey with the Dish Restaurant, which was very successful, sort of high-end fine dining kind of thing. And so we sort of put all our eggs into this basket and went on that journey, and that was how it started.
So tell me more about that time, because obviously we're looking at this beautiful view now, very successful restaurant, but let's rewind to that point, because that's the raw elements of behind business, isn't it?
Yeah. Look, I think there was a lot of circumstances behind that whole event, but to break it down, I guess in a sense of a personal sense, is that we were at the tail end of the Dish journey and looking to move on from that, but it was a 100-seater restaurant, lunch and dinner 7 days a week. It was very reliant on Belinda and I being very hands-on in the business. Yet we wanted to move. This opportunity came up sort of from left field, and we basically came up. This site had been shut down for a couple of years and went out for tender. We thought we'll throw a hat in the ring. We probably won't get it, and then we won it, and then went, oh, what do we do now? What happens? And we had to build this from the ground up. We had to get a lot of funding. We had council and Crown Lands, the state government, who were the landlord here, were in conflict. So there was a lot of pressure about that and the DA. We had a competitor who got upset that they didn't win it, and they tried to sabotage the building, and they were pouring concrete down the drains.
Wow.
So there was a lot going on, a lot of moving pieces. And back in those days, you know, I think we had kids, but they were very young. I think maybe we had Harrison and Charlie was a baby. So we had babies at the same time. So you know, in hindsight, we just took on, but we were trying to chew more than we could, you know. And so it was too much. And all of that sort of came together in terms of the health event. But that was sort of a tap on the shoulder from the big man to say, slow down and take it easy and focus on what's important to you. And so we let go of Dish and realised that was too much to try and do at the same time. Yeah. And this was a real focus. And this was a big thing to start. You know, back then we had about 50 odd staff. First day we opened, we did 1,500 customers through the door. We had a queue 50, 60 metres long out the footpath. So it was a big thing that we hadn't anticipated what we were getting into when we took it on. Yeah. And it needed all of our focus and energy.
Yeah. And do you think, though, having that health scare, that obviously was a scare because you've made a full recovery, which is amazing, do you think that's a good thing that happens, though, in those moments to prioritise and reassess?
I think it gives you a clarity around what's important. And, you know, I mean, it's cliche, but, you know, you realise that family and things like your personal stuff are the most important thing. But you realise that, you know, it's great to have all this ambition and want to do this and you want to keep this successful restaurant running. There would have been a lot of accolades and a lot of media profile and all that. So it was just very successful. And we kind of were a little bit caught up in that. And we wanted to get away from it, but we couldn't give it up. You know, it was just too good, you know. But we realised that, and both of us, I think, realised that we couldn't do it all. And I think that health scare, it wasn't a major stroke. It was a little infart. So in terms of, you know, a little brain bleed, but it was enough to say, this is, you know, you're not
still bad enough.
That's enough to go, oi, slow down.
Pull your head in.
Pull your head in, yeah. So yeah, I think, you know, look, it could have been worse. The guy that that ran this place before we took it over and redeveloped it, he died of a heart attack at the time running this. So, you know, it could have been worse. Yeah. And we didn't want to end up being like that. So it was enough to sort of say, let's just focus on one thing and do it properly.
And tell me, from that time on, how you chose to work, run a restaurant, and the changes that you made with even staffing and things like that. Do you think that you did it very differently compared to the other two ventures because now you're a bit more aware of?
I think that the scale of the thing allowed us to sort of work more on than in. And the other previous businesses, it was very much us at the centre of everything. We were opening it at 9 o'clock in the morning and closing at 2 o'clock in the evening and working 7 days a week and, you know, drinking too much coffee and smoking too many cigarettes to try and get through it. You know, we were in our 30s and we were hanging out with young staff and, you know, you'd go out drinking after work. It was just, we were all in on that. And by the time we got to this and we'd had children, it was sort of like, okay, this is an opportunity to grow something. The previous business turned over, I think, about $1.5 million, but it was much smaller than this. It was quite profitable for what it was. But this is a $5-6 million turnover business and has a lot more staffing. And there was the opportunity to sort of step outside of the day-to-day operations and have excellent chefs and restaurant managers and other people to help us and use the experience and know-how that we had to kind of pull that all together. So,
yeah. Do you think that is a cultural stigma in hospitality to live that hard life?
Yeah, it's kind of an industry thing, but I think it's also was a bit of a time of life kind of thing. Byron Bay at that time, we were in our early 30s then, as I say, and you could do everything, and you could run 1,000,000 miles an hour and whatever. I think children obviously came along, that changed your focus and what's important. Belinda stepped back from the business for a while that was happening, but yeah, I think yeah, it's definitely an industry culture thing that happens a lot, and it burns out a lot of people. There's high rates of suicide in our business in terms of chefs and restaurant owners and stuff like that because of the pressure, but also the lifestyle and everything that goes with it. So it is something that you need to be wary of. And if you're going to have longevity in this business, you can't keep doing that sort of life forever. You've got to kind of find some middle ground.
Yeah. And so now you've been in this for...
We're in our 20th year now.
Which, do you know the stats of how the average time length of a restaurant or cafe is?
I can't remember the exact figures, but most small businesses don't last for the first 5 years. So I think the majority of them, or 50% of them, or something like that.
Yep, 7 years.
And so it's unusual. There's only one other restaurant in town that's been open as long as us, and that's the Cypress Tree in Bay Lane. And they started pretty much the same time we started our first restaurant. They're still in the same restaurant, and they still work. The chef Andrew, the chef, works in the kitchen, and the wife works on the floor. And I take my hat off to those guys because that's pretty impressive. But we were very conscious that's not what we wanted to be. We wanted to be able to get out and remove and be able to have a business that wasn't reliant on us. And we always figured one day we're going to sell the business, and we can't sell Ben and Belinda. We can sell Beach Restaurant, but we can't sell ourselves. And so the business needs to be able to operate autonomously from us, and we can create it, we can drive it, but it needs to be able to have a life of its own that we can pass to somebody else to have some value in it.
Yeah. I love that. That scalability is vital. And obviously in today, it's talked about a lot more than it once was. So when you think about it, you guys have always been pretty ahead of the game. Where did you learn business from, and what was your influences?
I studied business management when I first left school. I guess probably my parents, and the same for Belinda, her parents, her dad started Golden Breed, which was a very successful surf brand, and it's a bit of a cult name now, but that financially failed, and that was I think that was something that Belinda carries with her, as she saw what that put her father through, and she never wanted to be in that position. My dad was very successful in his business, in a completely different thing, but I guess we grew up around self-employed people and motivated people who were always doing, and it was always sort of having high standards, high expectations for ourselves and what we wanted to be able to create.
Yeah.
Certainly, I don't think we were ever motivated by the money or the success or the fame or any of that sort of stuff. It was really about being the best, creating something that's the best it could be, and being the best version of ourselves we could be in that.
Yeah.
Don't know how successful we've been at that, but that's what we're striving for.
Yeah. And were your families, considering both parents came from a different business experience, were they both encouraging of you and Belinda to go on this venture?
Yeah, absolutely. My father was helped us when we went to our second restaurant, helped us with the funding with that, and he was very much to say, if you start with the first restaurant was quite a small one, and he said you need to be able to scale this up so that you're not reliant on it, and so that was the lesson he taught it. But he came in with some funding to help us as a partner in that business, to help us do that. And gradually we've bought him out, and we've since taken on an external partner in the last 10 years. But very much Dad was a mentor to us through the whole process. As a shareholder, he had a vested interest, so he was there to protect his investment as well. But he was very much a guiding influence to us in terms of where we went and the growth and what was important. So, yeah.
And do you think that's hard sometimes, having family, obviously husband and wife firstly in business, and then another generation invested in challenges?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, in my case, it probably brought Dad and I closer together. Dad was a workaholic when I was growing up, and he'd be gone before I got out of bed in the morning. He wouldn't come back home till 7, 8 o'clock at night. And so he wasn't really involved in my childhood, didn't come to sport or school things with me. So we had kind of distant relationship a little bit, but becoming involved in the business and working together, and his passion for business and those things gave us some mutual interest, and brought us together and gave us greater respect for one another and develop rapport and all those things. So I think from that point of view, that was a healthy thing, but it's absolutely 100% a challenge, and hasn't been a all success. It's been lots of ups and downs along the way, and when there's family money involved in that and all that sort of stuff, and then decision making and other things, it creates pressures and challenges. But I think we've sort of come out the other side of that now, and we have a good relationship, and I think from Belinda's family point of view, they were always very supportive. They weren't ever really involved in at any sort of detail level, but they thought it was great that we were doing this and stretching ourselves and having success and those things. So
Yeah, oh, I love that. And I love hearing that, yeah, sure, it wasn't always smooth sailing.
No,
but
it definitely wasn't.
Yeah, and hindsight again, really nice to see that it strengthened that relationship, and you could repair aspects of it from somebody that had different priorities or had to have different priorities in that time. Tell me, because you've got 2 kids of your own, did that change how you managed work and family because of that experience?
My personal experience?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it made me very conscious from before I had kids of this. That's not the parent I want to be. Yeah. And it's not trying to be critical. It was a different time, a different generation. And my father's relationship with his father was way different to what mine was. But I was very conscious as a probably more contemporary father that I want to actually be present in my kids' life. And so we prioritise time with the kids in doing sporting activities or things they like to do, or going on family holidays and things as well. But our kids grew up with us in the business. I remember when Harrison was a baby in the second restaurant dish, and they came home from hospital, and he was in the bassinet, and he sat next to us while we had dinner at the restaurant, and then he used to sit up on the counter with the chefs, and they'd feed him the ice cream they were making and stuff like that. And so the kids grew up and running around the restaurant where we would be having meetings, and Belinda would be changing the baby as we're having staff meetings. There was one time Harrison pissed all over while we were having a staff meeting and stuff. I go, whoa! So they were part of the experience. Yeah. That was us. They were an extension of us, and they grew up. And so I think, I look at my kids now, and they're both young adults, and they're both starting to go on this journey themselves. And I think this has really shaped them. And I talk about what influenced us. Yeah. I think we will be influences on them, hopefully positive ones. But I think, Harrison's very keen to sort of start his own business, and he's in the building business industry. And he very motivated to do that and whatever. And Charlie's got her mother's work ethic and attention to detail and passion for the projects that she's involved in. So I think I can definitely see a lot of us rubbing off on them. And I think hopefully it's the good stuff and not the bad stuff. So,
Leave the bad stuff, learn from that stuff, and just the good.
Yeah.
No, I love that. I think that's so beautiful. And it just shows that you can have a business that's successful and with your partner and juggle kids. You just got to find the formula that works for you.
And look, there's no doubt. I think, I've heard a million times that the worst way to ruin a marriage is going to business with your wife. And hospitality is doubly hard. But if I was doing this as an individual and my wife was doing something else, I think it would be really hard because, as I said earlier, this industry is such an all-consuming kind of lifestyle that the fact that we're doing it together, we pretty much spend, 22 hours a day together, and apart from when we're exercising, which we do on our own, that's about the only time we're not together and we're not talking about stuff, and we go on holiday together and do things. And so we're very connected like that, but at the heart of that is the business and the children, and that's our life, so.
And tell me, what do you think is the key to being able to balance marriage and business? Like, how do you switch off? Obviously, you said you exercise apart. Do you go on holidays and then talk about work?
Yeah, probably talk about all the time. We both love Australian rules football. So we and my
As do
wife
I.
and my wife barracks for the team that I hate most. So there's a bit of banter in that. My passion has always been snow skiing, and Belinda hated the cold, and so never wanted to. So I gave it up for 10 years when we first got married, and then Harrison got to about 10, and he's like, "Dad, I want to go. Oh, snow skiing would be so fun." And she's like, "That'd be a great family holiday." And we went on one, and we've skied every year since then, usually twice a year. And so that became our sort of ritual kind of getaway family holiday. Now the kids have stopped coming with us, but we still go, and we're heading off next week. And so that's something we look forward to every year. The rest, when the kids were younger, we used to always plan a camping trip or a trip to Noosa or whatever it might be, and do something where we'd have a couple of weeks family time together as well. Do obviously less of that these days. We don't generally we used to go to Bali and other places, but we kind of get all that here. So that's why it's nice to go to somewhere completely different and go into the Japanese mountains and eat beautiful food and drink some nice sake and have something completely different. So
I really like hearing that. Yeah, okay. Work is a big consuming factor, but you reconnect on the other loves, the other passions, and the compromise. Obviously, now you've completely convinced Belinda that snow is really good. We haven't convinced her to change football teams.
Yeah, I think what she's come to like, because she loves exercising. She's mad for exercising, and she's someone who can't sit still. So I think but I think what really swung her was there was such a great family holiday. You're doing things together, and you're having fun and laughing, and you're going on adventures and those things. I think so. She's developed a love for that side of it. She's not as passionate about it as I am, but she still loves when we go to, say, Japan, where we go most, she loves the food and loves the culture and loves the scenery. And as long as I don't take her down too steep a run, she loves that too. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
And she likes an onsen. So.
Yes. So you just needed to sell it better than
than
what you first did.
That's it.
So what would you say is the hardest part of business today compared to what it was, say, 20 years ago when you first started this?
Staffing.
We've got to be a bit quiet. They're really good ones that we've got now.
we have fantastic people, and I think, good people are the key, and your staff are what makes your business. There's no doubt about that. But skill shortages in this country are an all-time high, and I think that's well known. But trying to find good people in it, a lot of people want to come and live in Byron Bay, and so that's good, but it becomes a kind of a transient place where people will come for summer or 6 months or 12 months or 2 years, but they don't necessarily always come here. And there's limited career opportunities for people who come here. So staffing is the biggest challenge. And the other thing that I think that we're seeing right now is Byron Bay has exploded in popularity, and we talked before about the ease of getting into hospitality business. So everyone goes, I've seen enough MasterChef, I can run a restaurant. And so we've had this proliferation of restaurants and cafes open. When we opened the first beach cafe on the site, it was 30 other restaurants and cafes in town. There's now 180 something.
Wow.
So the pie gets cut very thin. And I said, we did 1,500 people on our first day. Back then, in those days, we would do 150 or more for breakfast, and the same for lunch, and the same for dinner. Now, if we do 50 or 60, that's a pretty busy day.
Wow.
Different business now. We've morphed into more of a high-end fine dining. So spend per heads are, we used to get like $12 for breakfast, and we used to get like $50 for lunch, and our lunch is about $130. So it's changed in that sense. It's scaled back, but in terms of the volume. But it's still, that's really, I think, for me, in this business, in this location, that's the hardest thing, is it's such a competitive market, and there's just constantly new players coming in, and then trying to find staff to deal with that. And it's very seasonal in this town, as you know. We'll go through schoolies, for example, in November, where there's virtually no other regular punters come through. It's just the kids, and so everyone else avoids it. And then you come out of that, and then there's the pre-Christmas lull where everyone's hanging on to their money because they're buying Christmas presents and whatever. And then bang, all of a sudden explodes, and you'll go 3 times the amount of revenue and covers that you were doing before that, and then you just get some momentum going and you feel like you've got a handle on this, and you hold right in the tsunami wave, and it's all going well, and then it finishes in the middle of January and it's all over, and then you've suddenly got staff everywhere that you haven't got enough work for. And then things tick along, go very quiet, and then mid-February, it starts picking up again. So you're constantly doing this, and that makes it very hard to manage your supplies, your staffing, your budgeting, all those things. It makes it very tricky. So,
And I'd imagine having the length of time you've been in it's helping, because you've seen the patterns, you've seen the cycles, and you've got that knowledge. But for the newbies coming in, they wouldn't have any idea, or they come in at the start of summer and go, oh, this is what it's always like. And spend up and then not have any to ride through those.
Well, there's a very high-profile restaurant that's just open, and they've just spent $10 million, no names, but one of the staff was telling me that when they employed everyone and started, they opened a week before Christmas. They said it gets busy in Byron from Christmas and stays busy all the way through to Easter. And I went, well, you know what?
No, it doesn't.
You're going to be in for a shock, because it doesn't do that. It goes do it. And they're already finding that out right now. So I think it is a trap. And when you're from the outside, it kind of might look like that, or you come here for a couple of weeks and go, wow, it's so busy or whatever. But it's just, it doesn't actually work like that. And there's a lot of things that go along the way. Every time we get an interest rate rise, people tighten up on their spending, or something happens, or when we came out of the pandemic and after the border restrictions closed with Sydney and Melbourne, we had our busiest period ever on the back of one of the near-death experiences, And then we get to the other side of COVID, and then we have the cost of living crisis. So you're just kind of jumping from pillar to post, from dilemma to drama, from one thing to another. But, I guess that sort of getting used to that and coming to terms with that makes you more resilient.
Sure.
I think the first big one we went through was the GFC, and that nearly killed us back at that period. What was that, 2008, 9, something like that, 7, 8, 9? I can't remember now. But we were hanging on by our fingernails. At that time, we had a lot of staff. We were turning over a lot, but our spends were very low. Our costs were very high. And all of a sudden, the floor fell out on us, and we had to overnight sort of work out how to shave our costs down and get our spends up and all those sort of things. But that period of about a year or so that it was very tough economic conditions, we learned a lot about the business. And when we came out of that and the bust became a boom, we were in a much better position, and we made a lot of good money in that period. And I kind of feel like the COVID times is a bit like that, except that it's elongated a lot more. We sort of thought COVID will come and it'll go and we'll get back to normal, but it's still not back to what it was before COVID. And then what are we now, 5 years later? And it's only just, I think this year we've started to see the green shoots of things returning to normal, but it's still not normal. I mean, the point I talked about, how it quietens down the back end of January, it used to taper up and taper down, and now it sort of does this and this. So it's still different.
Why? Why do you
I think again, there's more competition. People are traveling more. People go overseas more. There's the cost of operating businesses and labour and insurance and food and everything is more expensive. So you're working on very small margins. I mean, a lot of people don't understand that in hospitality, the average profit margin is 5%. I mean, even in a high-end place, if you're getting 10%, they say you should be running BHP. You're doing very well. So, whilst you might be an relatively expensive restaurant and getting $100, $150 a head, chances are you're only making $10 or $15 per person out of that plan, and you have a lot of costs. So, So it's tricky in that sense. But like I said to you, I think if we were in this for the money, we would have got out of it already. So we're in it because we love what we do, and we love creating great experiences. That's what I think we sell. I don't really see us as selling food and beverage. I see we're selling experiences. Because you don't, if you're just going out because you're hungry, then there's lots of things you can go and eat. But when you come to somewhere like this, you come here to have an experience. And that's really what we're in the business of doing.
And I think that trend of people blaming financial, crises and pandemics and recessions, like they've forever been happening.
Yeah.
That's not a new concept.
No,
It's cyclic.
Yeah.
And so if we are ignorant and say, oh, it's just this, it's like, well, no, there's going to be another one coming.
Yeah.
So it's about being smart, is what I'm hearing. And after the GFC of, let's say it's in 2010, you learnt to be smarter. You learnt where you could scrape in and manage it better, which then sets you up for the future things. Like, obviously, we look really green and grassy right now, but this was not there. There used to be trees there.
Yeah, there used to be a massive big tree here, big casuarina tree sitting right behind where I'm sitting.
And explain that the area.
So we'd only just really come out of the COVID thing, and through a series of, I guess, environmental conditions, this erosion event started. Yeah. And it's a factor called a phenomenon called headland drift, and it basically seems to happen about once every generation. You can track it back through Byron and see things back in the turn of the century and the 60s and 70s and blah blah blah. You can go back all the way and you'll see this happened a number of times. But the long story short is that there was no sand on this beach. We had 18 metres of dune and, as you say, trees and everything behind us, and that all got, over the period of about 6 months, we were losing about a metre every month, and there was sometimes more. And we got to the point where we had a 7 metre drop straight off here, and they wanted to close the restaurant down, and because it was considered unsafe. And we had to lobby, had to go for meetings with the minister down in Sydney and Macquarie Street, and with the council came with us, General Manager Council and the Mayor, and they were lobbying for our behalf, and we managed to convince them to put some sandbags in and save us. And the Crown and the state government spent about $1 million protecting us and the holiday park next door to us. That was really, but it was, I was coming down here, and it was every high tide on the full moon. That was when it was most severe. And I would be down here every night, whatever time it was, just watching stuff go away and feeling like I was having my guts ripped out. We'd worked so hard for so long, and everything was going well at that time. We'd come out of COVID and we were just going through a bit of a good period, and then this was happening, and it just felt like, oh my God, what have I done to deserve this? But anyway, you can look back and laugh on it now. We sort of survived that, and if you walked along the beach today, you wouldn't even really know that it had happened. The landscape looks a bit different, but we survived that, and this is another thing, I guess, that builds resilience, and you go, well, I didn't want to give up. A lot of people, we were told, this is never going to happen. I was told by the bureaucrats, over our dead body, will you ever see an excavator or a sandbag on the beach? It's never going to happen. We have people all over social media going, that's the end of that restaurant. Ha ha, look at them, they're falling into the sea. And it could have been so easy just to roll over and curl up into a ball and cry yourself to sleep. Yeah. And we just went, no, we're going to survive this. And we just kept going and lobbying ministers and other people to get a meeting with the decision makers, and we managed to get a result. So amazing. I think that's probably the thing that characterises most about myself and my wife, is that we just don't give up. We're just stubborn,
But standing the test of time when many others haven't.
Yeah, and look, I mean, it may not be a positive, it may be a negative, I don't know, but it's a trait that we've got, is that we are determined to survive, and we're going to go at our own terms, and we'll die trying, and that's kind of been the way we've lived our lives for this whole journey, and we're still here, and so you go, well, got on you, survive, but it doesn't necessarily, maybe if we'd given up and walked away, we could be doing something much easier. I don't know, but who knows?
But is easy better anyway?
I don't know.
Well, we won't know, because we choose the hard road.
Because I've always taken the hard road. Yeah, so.
And do you think that's that resilience, that drive, that grit and that determination, do you think that's why you're such a big advocate for not just your business, but we've talked about with staff, but also tourism and creating community and those types of things, especially in times where you need community support, you need those other sectors to back you.
Yeah.
Where does that come from?
Yeah, I think there is some selfishness in it, in the sense that you go, for us to be successful, this town's got to be successful.
Sure.
But also, there's also the things that we love about it, the beach, the culture, the community, the lifestyle, the environment, all those things. We kind of got to fight for that as well. And you can't do that on your own. And so we're going to have better working as a collective to get that done. And a lot of my motivations, I mean, I was coerced onto these boards and whatever, but I guess I came to see that in a destination sense, and working for a destination, whether it was the Visitor Centre or the Chamber of Commerce or eventually the tourism body, that if the destination is successful, that's going to make a better town for me to live in and my kids to grow up in. It's going to make a better town for me to have a successful business in. And it's going to be something that I feel, you know, I didn't want us to be turned into another Gold Coast or a Noosa or whatever it might be. We wanted it to be Byron Bay and wanted to see it maturing and growing and becoming a more evolved and sort of mature destination, because nothing can stay still. I know you can't stay the 1970s hippie town, surfing place forever. It's not going to last. It's never going to happen. So if you're not careful, you can end up with high rises on the beach and Maccas in town everywhere, and you know,
which we have none. Just to be clear for people who are watching this overseas, we don't have the big chain fast food restaurants, do we?
No, we don't. But
that's been hard.
But there, you know, there has been a lot of that sort of thing come in under the radar. Whilst McDonald's and KFC were kept at bay, and they all tried to come in. Subway snuck in under the radar, and all of a sudden that opened the floodgates, because that set precedent for other franchise type businesses to come in. And today what you're seeing is there's very few businesses like ours, particularly in retail or hospitality, that are still independently owned, kind of mum and pop kind of operation. There's all of the Betty's Burgers and the Grills and these sort of other big sort of name franchises. Gomez and Guzman and Gomez, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, whereas
big company,
the
Beachy was bought
and all that sort of thing. Yeah,
and a corporation.
It's a big corporation, and so that has changed, but it's still very different feel. And to Byron, it's still, and I think that's why they come here, because these brands want to be associated with Byron. But it's very different to walking down Hastings Street in Noosa or Cavill Avenue in Suffolk in Surfers Paradise or whatever it might be. You know. It still has a Byron feel, but everything changes. But a lot of the work I was doing, come back to the question, a lot I was doing back then was because I believed in the place and what is important. I had experience living overseas in the Caribbean, where we lived for a number of years and saw what was happening there, and traveling around Europe and America. And so I guess I was conscious that I could see that Byron was in its embryonic stages when we first came here, as probably being a tourist destination. It was been a town for 100 and something years, but in terms of becoming a tourist icon, you could see that it was happening then. And I was conscious of, okay, if you believe in this, you need to kind of stand at the front and fight for it and kind of muster the troops to come with you. And that's kind of, I guess, maybe it wasn't as deliberate as that, but that's kind of where it was. My head was at.
I think it is. I think that you have that business mind that works on such a multitude of layers, and it's so clever. But I love that you could see by giving back, it also protected and enhanced the culture that was developing. And when we look at Byron and how it has evolved, even in this, say, 20 years, it's changed drastically. It's gone from hippie kind of mung bean kind of town to backpacker central. And then slowly, I think we've got, 4 backpackers left now? Not many.
It is very different. And look, there's pluses and minuses with that. And certainly there are a lot of people that feel like it's
cooked.
As on the Facebook community page that will tell you how bad it is and how it used to be better when we were whaling and doing things, but you know.
Yeah, whaling was what Byron was originally known for.
Well, maybe not the whaling, but the people who grew up in the town then, and I get that there's a romantic vision about that. But I think we all know that nothing stays the same forever, and nothing is like what it used to be. I think back to my childhood and growing up and riding bikes around the street and catching trains into town and things like that in the city in Adelaide. And you know, they're things that you wouldn't do today or couldn't do today. And everything has changed. But it's about making sure that the essence of the place doesn't get lost. It doesn't sell its soul.
Sure.
And it's a fine line that we're walking all the time. And some people will go, well, I think Byron has lost its soul. But there are other people who go, well, I think it could be a lot worse.
Why do you think that the media and then maybe external people and some probably internal, why do you think they've got this real nearly love-hate relationship with Byron? What is it about it?
I think it's the Australian tall poppy kind of thing. I think even the people that love to sort of stick it into Byron kind of love Byron, but they it's like Chris Hemsworth, everyone kind of loves him, but they want to bring him down too. Don't let him get too big for his boots, and I kind of think it's a bit that way. It's funny, with the erosion thing, because of our location here and how dramatic it was, and I had so much media. I did so many interviews with television internationally and nationally, and radio and TV and newspapers, but they kind of were almost getting off on watching us suffer, but they kind of loved us at the same time. But it was, I don't know what it's about. But it's definitely a thing. People love to sort of go, oh, look at Byron, because I think we are so iconic and we are kind of loved, and it's kind of like, make sure you don't get too big for your boots,
Is it because it eludes so many people? Like, let's be honest, Byron's permanent population, I think, is about 7,000 now. It used to be about 5. But transient on weekends can go up to, 21,000 or something?
We get about 2 million visitors a year.
There you go.
The Greater Byron has, so if you include Suffolk Park and Sunrise and stuff, it's about 15,000 people. But effectively, it's like it's a small suburb, it's a small suburb in a small city. And yet, like I said, we have 180 restaurants and we've got cafes and we've got so many hotels. So it's, you go to down the road 30 kilometres to Ballina and they've got a population of 30,000 and there's probably a dozen restaurants and, a couple of cheap motels. And so it's very different, but it's on the back of the tourism. And, I think we're the second most visited destination outside of the Blue Mountains. So there's Sydney, then Blue Mountains, then Byron.
Wow.
It's in the top 10 or 15 in Australia of destination. So for such a small place or population, we punch way above our weight. And the interesting thing is that, you can go anywhere in the world. Sure. And I've been overseas and people go, oh yeah, where do you come from? And show, oh, I was born in Adelaide. Oh, I've never heard of that. I lived in Melbourne. Oh yeah, maybe. Sydney. Oh yeah, I've heard of Sydney. I live in Byron Bay. Oh, Byron Bay.
Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah. Oh, I've always wanted to go to Byron Bay. So it's funny because I think it's quintessentially Australian. I mean, the backdrop we have here are the blue oceans and the beautiful beaches and the warm weather, and it's something, if you're from overseas, it's like, this is what you imagine Australia to be like.
Absolutely. And it does punch above its weight in the fact that, like we said, small population, large restaurant count, which means you don't need to leave the postcode to have an abundance of quality food, high end, that you could be in a city.
And this is also what's changed the demographic of this town, because the more affluent people, and the COVID was a big push factor in this, in changing people where they sort of moved out of the cities. But a lot of people realise that you could come and live up here or have a house up here, and you can jump on a plane and be in Sydney in an hour, or you can be in Brisbane an hour and a half by car, and we all learned to work from home and Zoom and things like that. And so it became, well, I could run my business from here, or if I've got enough money and I could, have a business in Melbourne, but spend a lot of time up here. And so that changed the demographic of town, and that has had a big impact on the fabric of the society. But I think what's interesting is that even the people that come here like that, they kind of pull their tie-dye T-shirt on and put their beads on for the weekend when they're in Byron, and drop the roof off the convertible BMW as they drive around town. We get people, and you come in here in a restaurant like this, and you can never judge people. That's something I've learned is, you'll get some hippie-looking guy with long hair and a big beard and walk in with sarong wrapped around him, and then someone will go, that guy's worth about $2 billion. You can't judge people around here,
But don't you love that? Like, that's what I love so much about it, is that people get to go under the radar. Like, I know we joke about Chris Hemsworth, but you see him walking barefooted down the street in his boardies, and no one cares. Everyone leaves him alone. It's only probably the tourists.
He did tuck shop duty at the at Byron Primary School, handing out sausage rolls and donuts, to the kids. So I mean, I think that's what Byron's about. It's not about the look at me kind of attitude. Everybody's more down to earth. Yeah. So it's. And look, it is a great place to live, and we've been here, as I say, 30 years now, and I can't imagine living anywhere else. But it's not all roses. There's a few speed bumps along the way.
What would you say is the hardest thing right now that you're facing in business?
In business, I think, the cost of living crisis generally in terms of squeezing your margins. Skill shortages, as I said to you, is
why is that so prevalent? What is that?
I think it's one of these things. Like when we had our first restaurant, we were pretty much, I'd say, 99% Australians. We used to get apprentices every year. We had a first year, a second year, a third year, a fourth year, and they come through. And these days, the kids all want to be, website developers or TikTokers or whatever, or podcasters. So it's not a glamorous area. So it tends to be the people who are coming here and want to take these jobs tend to be coming from other places. And right here, we're like the United Nations. We have Italians, French, South Americans, Japanese, people coming from everywhere because they want to have the lifestyle and be able to live in Australia. And so this is a way for them to get in. But we very rarely get any Australians coming through as chefs, wanting to be chefs these days. Apprentices, especially not existent. So there's that. And I think that just, again, with the growth, I mean, we talked about the number of, in my business, in my industry, the number of restaurants here, whereas before in our previous restaurant Dish, which was very successful at that time, we had 2 hatted fine dining restaurants. It was ourselves and Finn's. And basically that was it. And so if you wanted to work in a top end restaurant in this town, you came to one of those venues. Yeah. Now in Byron, you could go to 15 of those places. So it just makes it harder in that sense. And then you've got housing pressures, housing shortages. It's very hard, very expensive for people to live here, very hard to find a house. Most of our staff live in surrounding villages, or Ocean Shores, Mullumbimby, Bangalow, Lennox Head, because they can't. It's a bit like, say, Aspen, that none of the staff live in Aspen. They all live outside down the mountain and get bussed up every day. And I think Byron's become a lot like that.
Yeah. And that is a point, that Byron's housing prices are like, waterfront Sydney.
Yeah.
Like that's the other comparable, isn't it? Like they are quite unique for such a small, but as a supply and demand is the key.
It's a basic economics 101, supply and demand. Yeah. You can't keep, there's no big housing developments and things going on here where they can just keep bringing in more housing stock. More money comes into town, so they knock down the little weatherboard cottage and they build a big, 2-story, 3-story thing, and prices go up and up.
Yeah. So tell me, what do you see for you and Belinda? What's the vision moving forward? Because obviously you renovate this quite regularly to keep it looking fresh and whatnot. What do you see for the next 5 years for these?
It's a good question. We do kind of work on the Madonna theory. You've got to kind of reinvent yourself every 5 years to stay relevant. Otherwise you become passé. And that's something we've been very conscious of and deliberately done. We've done that with all of our businesses right along the way. And I think that has been something that has worked for us. It's been a bit of a template for success in that sense. But I have to say that the last 4 or 5 years has had so many curveballs thrown at us and so many obstacles put in our way. It's made it harder to look forward and think about what's going forward, because we're constantly still trying to dig ourselves out of the hole we're in. And it's a bit hard to look up and think about, let's go do something else, because we're just trying to survive at the moment. And that's probably been a big handbrake on where we would normally sort of be always thinking about what's the next 5 years got for us. We did pre-COVID, we were ready to, our plan was to buy something else and start another restaurant in town, go back full circle to where we came and go, right now we're ready to do something and leverage the two and disperse the overhead of, the head chef sort of core menus for both and run staffing between the two and buy in bulk and all those sort of things. And we saw that. And then we were very close to doing that, just with an opportunity in town. And then COVID came along and we went, no, it's not the right time to do it. By the time we came out of that, which we're still kind of doing, everything had changed. And the prices on everything and everything, it was like, oh, that ship sailed. We've missed that opportunity. And now there is hardly anything. And if there is anything in town, one of the big corporates are buying it up. And so we kind of missed it. Yeah. So, but I'm going into my 60th year this year, and so I'm kind of going, well, I don't know whether I've got another restaurant in me. So we're more turning our head to going to go, well, what else could we do? And no one retires at 60 anymore. That's just it. We're probably going to have to go another 20 years. So what are we going to do? And I think we've kind of 3 restaurants in, and 3 for ourselves and working for other people before that. 30, 40 years of doing this feel like it's probably something else. We want to do something different. And we've got a few ideas, and one of them relates a bit to snow and skiing and Japan and things like that. But you're just ideas that are just whizzing around there. Nothing is really sort of fully formed at this stage. But I guess we're thinking about that. But it's really more at this stage about we're trying to turn the business. The business was really doing very well back in 2018, 19, 20. And then we went through, obviously, what everyone went through. And now we're just starting to see ourselves coming out the other side of that. We can see a bit of light at the end of the tunnel. Not there yet, but hopefully we can get back to that point. And then maybe then it's a time for us to look at a change. But we've spent so long and put so much blood, sweat and tears into this, we're just not prepared to sort of give it all away and walk away. So we want to get the business back as healthy as it can and be able to take it to market at a good price and give ourselves at least enough to walk away and start something else.
Beautiful. So if you could give any advice to someone that might be currently in a business or hospitality at the moment and they're doing it pretty tough, what would be the one bit of advice motivation or something that you can give them?
I'm tempted to say if they're in hospitality, get out now. But no, I would say, I think your 2 most important factors are your staff and your customers. And if you design your business around that so that you're making a great place for people to work and where people are motivated, people feel rewarded and respected and valued, and if the customers are treated in the same way, that, we always say that customers are like people coming to visit us in our house, and they should be treated like guests in your house, and that, they still have to respect your house and treat you with respect. They're not servants to them, but we're creating an environment where they feel like they're being looked after and treated as special people. So if you value your clients and listen to your clients and you treat your staff with respect and care, I think they're the building blocks that everything else can sort of fold around.
Yeah, love that. And look, this has been incredible, and I think there's so many key points that people can take away from this conversation, from the fact that although everything looks so successful and wonderful, it's been a journey to get there. There's been a lot of obstacles, a lot of highs, a lot of lows, and a lot of stuff in between. But if I hear you correctly, it's grit, determination, teamwork and community, whether that is your staff, whether that's your family, whether that is community as a whole. Surrounding yourself with people that enhance you but also work with you is vital.
And I think also just we always just see we're part of a team, and we look at our staff like family. Probably, sometimes they look at us like the uncle that you turns up at Christmas that you don't want there. But so I think if you think about it that way, it's not putting yourself above everyone else and treating it. Doesn't matter whether they're the Japanese girl who's in there washing dishes, or the restaurant manager, or the head chef, that everybody's the same and everybody needs to be treated equally with equal respect and feel valued and feel appreciated. Then that's really going to give you something that you can work from. But if you start, thinking that they're here just to serve you and that they just shut up and do what they're told, it's just not kind of going to, I say it's a lot like raising children. You have to be firm but fair, but if you respect them and love them and show them appreciation and guide them in the right way, they're going to turn out to be good people. And I think that's a lot the same with staff. It probably sounds a bit patronising, but in the terms of just
Don't have a favourite.
Yeah, you don't have a favourite, and you don't treat anyone differently. It doesn't matter what they do. Even the naughty one, you still love them, and even the smart one, who can't kick a ball, they're still good. You know? So I mean, everyone's got value, and everyone needs to be appreciated for that. And look, but nobody's perfect, and I think I think we learn as much from our mistakes as we do from our successes, and God knows I've made plenty of those. So maybe that's been my biggest learning. I don't know.
I like it. So, final question: what would you say the phrase "the view from here" means to you?
The view from here. Well, I have a great view from here, and people often say, "Oh, you get amazing view." Oh, yeah. You can get complacent about having a good view from here, but I think to me, I think if someone said that to me, I go, "Well, that would mean I've made it to the top," and I'm looking out on everything else, and I kind of feel like it's a journey that you just kind of never get to the top on. There's always you come over that hill, and there's another bit to climb. There's always more to go. Maybe at the end of the journey, when I'm sitting in a nursing home, with a teeth in a jar beside me or something, I'll look back and I'll say I've made it to the top. But right now, I feel like I'm only halfway up the mountain, and I keep sliding back as fast as I can crawl up. Look, there is a certain that smell of roses kind of element, and that is probably something that I probably need to kind of remind myself of sometimes. How lucky we are to live here, and got a beautiful family, and they've got successful business and great staff, and all those things. So, but I think if you sit around with your head buried in the rose bush all day, you're probably going to get your ass kicked or whatever.
Ass back too.
Yeah, exactly. So you just got to kind of go, yeah, that's good, but I'm not done yet.
I like that. So it's always keeping that momentum, but still appreciating and being grateful for what you have.
I think as you're climbing up that mountain and you slide down, you look over your shoulder, oh, that's nice. Okay, let's keep climbing.
I like it. I'm just having visions of you at the snow.
Yeah.
Stopping every now and again now on a black run just to admire where you are.
No, when I've got the view from up here, I go, oh, that looks pretty scary.
Yeah.
that's a double black diamond. I'm going to fall down that. So.
Well, look, this has been incredible. There is so many hidden gems, and I think for people watching this, just to get that vision of Byron, but get how it's so layered when you're creating anything. But it's also the back end stuff. It's you as a person. It's you as a family man, and having children and juggling. Like, you're always juggling and moving and flipping different things that are happening. It's just never a linear path. And buckle up and enjoy the ride.
Yep.
So thank you so much, Ben, for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
And this has been amazing.
All right. Thank you. All right.